No, brothers and sisters, I think our beloved minister is about to mount the rostrum. Praise be to Allah. Here he is, brothers and sisters. Let us bring him on with a strong round of applause. Brother Student Minister Henry Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, family. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the most merciful God, I bear witness there is but one God whose proper name is Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, to whom holy praise is due forever. We thank him for raising from among us a divine messenger, whom we know to be the Messiah, the exalted Christ, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we thank them both for giving us an extension of themselves. And our divine reminder and warner, our champion of truth, freedom, justice, and equality, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. As in those three great names, I'd like to greet you all in the nation's greetings of peace and paradise. We say in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. How's everyone? All praise is due to Allah. I find myself striving hard to make my word bond, fighting for Islam. So I know we'll surely win. The victory is set. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You know, so nobody said it was going to be easy. You know, but we got to do what we got to do. And, you know, really, brothers and sisters, as we grow more and more to understand the mission of resurrection and the building of a nation, then through our study of that and our actions that we take in accord with that, you know, the more we submit, the more it becomes a part of us. And the more that we see that regardless to what happens, you know, we're going to still make sure we do the mission. All praise is due to Allah. And this is very important. I see more and more so on a daily and weekly basis that the spirit of the believers has to be intact. You know, and because we're in a real critical hour.
Yes, sir.
And since we know from our lessons of supreme wisdom that 85% of the population is deaf, dumb, and blind. Yes, sir. Slaves to mental death and power. You know, they worshiping that they know not what. In our Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, the question is asked, who is the 85%? And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that they are the uncivilized people, poison animal eaters, slaves from mental death and power, people who do not know the living God or their origin in this world. And they worship that they know not what, who are easily led in the wrong direction, but hard to lead in the right direction. It doesn't have no color barrier in that.
None.
That's 85% of the population of the world. Now, when you think about attracting power and you think about atmosphere and what makes up atmosphere, you know, most people, when they think about atmosphere, the general thought would be air. And so, yes, air is part of the atmosphere. And when you look at it from that vantage point, and from the mind of God, we understand that thoughts travel on air.
That's right.
Think of that.
And so the thought of God, 85% of the population don't have a proper thought about God. 85% of the population are easily led in the wrong direction. By who? By people who know about God. By people who want to keep those who are in that mindset away from God and control them. So now if that's 85% of the atmosphere, how much of that atmosphere has pressure on you and I? You see? And those who are of that kind of mindset, they carry a certain atmosphere of disbelief, negativity, and ignorance with them. Then the question is asked, who is the 10%? The rich, the slave makers of the poor, who teach the poor lies to believe that the almighty, true, and living God is a spook and cannot be seen by the physical eye, otherwise known as the bloodsucker of the poor. So here's a group of people, 10% of the population, that are rich. And they are slave makers of the poor. Slave makers of uncivilized people who are savage. Poison animal eaters.
Yes, sir.
Eating bologna. Talking about my bologna has a first name. It's Oscar. You know, and bologna, brother, sister, what is bologna? What is that made up of? That's a mixture of all kind of stuff. But you know, you ever heard somebody use the phrase, you're full of baloney? And when they were saying that, if you was an 85%, you didn't know what they meant. But baloney is a mixture of cat, rat, dog, worms, and that. So it's really feces. So when someone says you're full of baloney, they're just trying not to curse at you. But you eating that.
And just think, that's what was
So the rich slave makers of the poor who teach the poor lies. And the lie, the major lie, is to believe that the almighty, true and living God is a spook and cannot be seen by the physical eye. Otherwise, these people, the 10%, are known as bloodsuckers of the poor. They're like vampires. But they're not sucking your physical blood, they're sucking your spiritual blood. They're sucking your soul. They're sucking the soul of 85% of the population of the people on the planet. Some of them are family. Some of them are neighbors. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Then the question is asked, who is the 5% in the poor part of the earth? 5%. Small group. Not the 5%ers, the 5%. There's no color in this. So when you hear the minister say, Father Flager is a man of faith, that's my brother. And then he says, is the white man the devil? He said, not this one. So the 5% are the poor. They are the poor. Righteous teachers who do not believe in the teachings of the 10% and are all wise. Now, just because they're the poor righteous teachers don't mean that they're poor and raggedy. That does not justify us staying broke. Let me just make that clear, brothers and sisters. Poor righteous teacher. No, stop that. Look at your pants. Look at your shoes. Poor righteous teacher. Stop. We may have been found that way, but God don't want us to stay that way. And when you and I start taking on this knowledge and really delving into it and striving to live according to that knowledge, now you're getting substance. See? Now you're getting the substance that's needed to go along with your freedom, your justice, your equality. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Because how are we going to be truly free if our mental capacity is not free? To think outside of the box of the slave master's teaching. And how are we going to be able to justify ourselves and get justice for our people if we can't justify our existence with a proper knowledge of ourselves? And a knowledge of God and a knowledge of the enemy and the science of everything that's around us. Then we can equalize ourselves by God's permission with the 24 scientists who predict history 25,000 years in advance and then go above them because we're coming from a knowledge of a God who they could not see his light. They couldn't see beyond his light. Now I'm talking about Allah in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. The writers of Revelation, the writers of the Holy Quran could not see beyond his light. They had to put their pens down. They couldn't write beyond. All they can see is his light coming. So they talk about God's coming, but they can't talk about what happens after God comes, after the judgment. because that wasn't written. His wisdom is so high and mighty, they couldn't see beyond him. So the scripture says they had to put their pens down and couldn't write no more. And they says, what's coming, eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man on what it would be like. And we're in that day, and we done met that man. He came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. So that's the substance that's among us today, and that we're involved with and being introduced to come out of the mindset of 85% of the population, be able to recognize who is the 10%, which is the enemy of God, and then come into that number of people who make up the 5%, which we're trying to qualify for. They are the poor, righteous teachers who do not believe in the teachings of the 10%. And are all wise and know who the living God is, and teach that the living God is the Son of Man, the supreme being, the black man of Asia, and teach freedom, justice, and equality to all the human family of the planet Earth, otherwise known as civilized people, also as Muslim and Muslim son. Everything in here describing the 5% has to deal with knowledge, wisdom, understanding. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So we're dealing with the part 2 of the 3 keys. Knowledge, faith, and love. This kind of knowledge is the knowledge that's needed. And faith has to go along with that knowledge. Because if we're not on course with this kind of mindset, we can easily find ourselves being distracted by the atmosphere of 85% of the population that are deaf, dumb, and blind. Before you know it, we'll be accepting homosexuality. Before you know, we'll be talking about investing in legalization of reefer to make money for the mosque.
That's right. You're right.
Come on.
If we're not focused on the knowledge that has been given to us by God, we'll start talking about everything else except for what our mission is. And allowing ourselves to get distracted and disgruntled. Because we don't see things going the way that we think it should go. And then before you know it, we'll start saying, I ain't coming out no more. Because we don't never get to do this, and we don't never get to do that, and I ain't doing this, and I ain't doing that. And you forgot why you're here. See, the falling away, as it says in the book of Thessalonians, that day shall not come unless there be a falling away first, and the man of sin be revealed.
That's right.
Well, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has taught us there are 2 falling aways. There's the falling away that takes place when those who the man of sin is made known to, which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came up among us and made us to know that the white man is the devil. And with that knowledge on who is the devil caused us to start falling away from the white man. Is that right?
That's right.
When we were taught that at the time in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, you smoking that cigarette because the white man got you smoking that cigarette. You drinking that wine because the white man got you drinking that wine. You wearing the hot pants and the mini skirts, it was hot pants back then, and the mini skirts because the white man got you doing that. You got that blush on your cheek, you trying to look like that white man's woman. All that, and so with the knowledge of God and knowing that, oh man, I've been tricked. All right, I'm not trying to be like the white man. I'm going to give up that cigarette. I'm going to give up this. But that's one aspect of the man of sin. Somebody would have to come and reveal Satan. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So with the man of sin being revealed, it caused certain people of the chosen people of God listening to that to fall away from the man of sin and start holding on to Muhammad. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
But at a certain point, even the people of Muhammad, some of them start falling away from Muhammad. And that's what I was trying to point our attention to in the book of Daniel, chapter 9, verse 24 through 27, because it talks about a time where in 62 weeks, 2/3 would be cut off for the Messiah.
That's right.
62 weeks is 62 weeks. Those weeks are talking about years.
That's right.
And from my calculation, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan became a minister of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1957. It's been 62 years and 2019.
That's right.
And people are falling away from the Messiah.
That's right.
People are cutting off from the Messiah. 2/3. At a time when it's about to get real hot and heavy. This ain't a time to get scared.
That's right.
The minister has a rendezvous with destiny. But guess what, believers? So do we. We are in this book.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
Our rendezvous is in this book.
Yes, sir.
And it's not for us to fail. But do you think that we can go on saying we believe and not be tried? When others was tried before us, Allah got to know who's the truthful one from the liars. The hypocrite got to get exposed. The weak one got to get exposed. The disbeliever got to get exposed. Then we can get some real work done.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come on.
It's a real deep thing, isn't it? So, knowledge, as we talked about on Sunday, it's one of the meanings that was given is about knowledge being a learned experience. And so we asked the question from the lessons, have you not learned that your word shall be bond, regardless to whom or what? And the answer is, yes, my word is my bond, and bond is life, and I will give my life before my word shall fail. Well, it's regardless to whom or what. Regardless if we fall ill, which is a trial and a test, and when that happens, that's testing us, and it may cause us to not be able to do what we used to do. And until we get our strength back, we may only come out once a week, twice a month, but once your strength gets back, you're supposed to get back with Allah. Is that right? The 94th surah of the Holy Quran talks about that, the expansion. And it talks about after difficulty comes ease, and with difficulty comes ease. You all right?
Yes, sir.
These are things that help us in our faith, help us in our knowledge, help us with our love for that which we say we love. We say we love the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We say we love the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We say we love ourselves. We love our people until we start getting tested and tried. And if the test and trial shows us to be weak in certain areas, that's not nothing to beat ourselves up on. That's a good thing that we get to see it, so we know what we got to work on. Is that right? But Allah says in the 94th surah, see, because it's about attitude. No matter what happens to us, we always have to keep the attitude that the glass is half full, not half empty. Because that attitude can mess with your mood, and that mood can throw all that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in the gutter. You can be the most knowledgeable one in the mosque. You can be the most strong believer in the mosque. But if your mood and your attitude get affected, just overnight, you can start doing things, and people are like, what the hell did happen to him? What did happen to her? And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said we can turn hypocrite overnight. I'm not saying that person will become hypocrite, but in that instant, you might start talking like a hypocrite. You may start thinking like a hypocrite. So we always got to be mindful. But Allah says in the Holy Quran, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, have we not expanded for thee thy breast, and removed from thee thy burden which weighed down thy back, and exalted for thee thy mention? Surely with difficulty is ease, with difficulty is surely ease. So when thou art free from anxiety, work hard and make thy Lord thy exclusive object. Sickness can bring anxiety and grief. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And it can be weighing down our back. And we'll be wondering, Allah, why did you allow this to happen to me? But if we hold on and we're going to the doctor and we're dealing with what we got to deal with, then we start learning how to get that out of us so that we can get back to the strength and to what we was doing. But that's no excuse to just say, I'm done with the mosque completely. If you're in a hospital laid up, of course you can't come out to the mosque. But your mind should still be on Allah. Your mind still should still be on your teachers because that's our soul. That's the essence of us. Is that right? Allah created us from a single essence and our mate of the same kind. And for our MGT. I became an FOI from one single essence. Minister Farrakhan. And my mate of the same kind. Is that right? That's the one seed, Farrakhan. Based off of his knowledge, his faith, and his love, made me start loving the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Made me start loving Allah. Made me start loving myself, loving my people, loving loving to want to get them out of this condition. Is that right? From a single essence, touching the essence of God in you and I. And from these two spread many men and women. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spiritually is the wife of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's mate. And from them two, look at this nation of Islam. Now, we can go into the Quran, you can get all spiritual and everything else like that, but show and prove to me that single essence. We know it's the original man, we know it's it, but how is it for us today, coming out of death into life? So knowledge helps us to see better. Is that right? And knowledge, as we went into some of the definition of it, and I just had it in front of me, now I lost it. I guess there's no need of me going into it. But knowledge is something learned and kept in mind. Knowledge applies to facts or ideas acquired by study, observation, or experience. Learning applies to knowledge gained usually through formal schooling, especially at advanced level. There's no more advanced level than Muhammad University of Islam. Every time we walk into Muhammad Mosque, you're in Muhammad University of Islam. Don't think it's just for the little children. We are God's children. You know, this is a place of learning, highly advanced learning. And if we take it for granted based off of the atmosphere of the devil and the 85%, too many times, look, I love our people in the church. And I love the progressive churches with all the programs and everything they got. But I know one thing that they don't have, and that's the knowledge of the true and living God and the obedience that goes along with that knowledge. And any pastor that's going to be truthful will tell you, if I could get half of my population to do what Minister Farrakhan got his followers doing in the Nation of Islam, I would be on top of the world. But if I start trying to get my congregation to do what he got his people doing, I will lose my congregation.
That's right.
Because they ain't plugged up to the juice. I don't care. I mean, because some of us, I'm just saying, some of us, we admire it so much, our talk starts sounding like if though you wish you was there rather than being here. And, you know, I don't know what that all is, but over the past 30 years, from time to time, we'll hear it off and on. But this is Noah's Ark. Yes, sir. It's made up of crude nails and planks. There's some crude individuals up in here. But this is Noah's Ark. And in the midst of the flood that's coming, and the fires that's coming, and the earthquake that's coming, this will still be floating on. All that other stuff going to crumble, but this will still be floating on by Allah's grace. So, you know, brothers and sisters, we didn't get a chance to finish out from Sunday, but you know, the minister had said to us in some of his teaching on faith, I just want to go back to my note, because when we talk about faith, which is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things yet unseen, the minister said, regardless of what you know, you must have a greater faith than your knowledge. For knowledge is of a surety limited no matter how much you know. But if your faith in Allah God is great, your faith in his word is great, then that faith will lead you to greater and greater knowledge. We'll never know it all. But faith can take us where knowledge would not be able to take us. And it's funny because when you think about it, our faith in a person or a thing, our faith in Allah, when we're in the deepest part of our trial, if we hold fast to the God and faith in the God, even at times when we can't see further than where our knowledge stops, and just be still and be quiet. I don't mean just sit in the doggone corner. What I mean by be still and be quiet, I mean as you're going through your everyday life, in the midst of your trial, you're screening yourself from within, from speaking on the trial that you're dealing with, because you're waiting on Allah to give you a hint and a sign. That, along with prayer and striving to do the right thing, things start opening up to you. You start getting visions of where this is about to go. And you know it wasn't from your study. And to me, that's where faith is taking you places that knowledge can't take you. And where faith is increasing your knowledge. And when we heard the minister say, when I go to sleep, and Allah takes my soul, I don't know about you, but he writes on my soul.
That's right.
See, that inspires me. That should inspire you to be like, yo, I want that.
That's right.
How do I get that? Well, we have the example in front of us in Minister Farrakhan. Is that right?
Yes,
By doing what he does. He says, we must be faithful men and women, but we must also be possessors of knowledge. There are so many of our people who have a lot of faith but very little knowledge. We need both faith and knowledge to buttress and support the power of our being, which is what? Our will. The willpower that we have is really the power of our being. You know, that will is the real power of Allah, God, and man, teaches the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And will is the power of the mind to control all its actions. And when we submit that will to God, then he takes it and gives it back to us under his direction. Man. So the throne of Allah is on our brain. Our brain is Allah's throne. And this is a beautiful thing. We're going to get right into love, but check this out. The minister, I mean, the way he taught us about this, your brain and my brain sits on water. All life comes out of water. So our brain produces life. It ain't the sperm cell in the egg. It starts here with the brain.
That's right.
And that brain sits on water. And when that brain is in submission to God and God's knowledge and God's way, then it's even producing more life, because at that point, that water is being drawn up from the brain in a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect. And that water, as it gets drawn up, is going into different atmospheres of current, and it floats like clouds. It's a mist. The cloud is made up of mist of water. It floats by the wind current. So when you and I are in that kind of submission, it ain't to the point of what Brother Henry wants to do or where Brother Henry. I move along the way Allah wants me to move. Not me yet. But I see it with Minister Farrakhan. And everywhere he moves, he comes among people and he drops water down on the people like a rain cloud. What is that? What? Revelation from God. And after he finished, the people are so elated. Is that right? Then there's times when he'll come, like in Grand Rapids, and he's dropping not just a revelation. He's dropping some warning that he's telling you the end is here. Then it's time where he's setting off high explosion. Is that right? Which is causing thunder and earthquakes, shaking the foundation of human beings through the word of God. But it's our brain that Allah wants to sit on. That's his throne. Is that right? That's the place where God resides. So he said, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has taught us that the brain of man is infinite. Infinite. If the brain of man is infinite, then man can bring into existence whatever he conceives in his mind. The repository for Allah, God, the place for God to dwell, God is infinite in the brain of man. So when we get the teaching that who is the original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. When we drink that in, along with the training that we're getting through our process on both sides of the house, then God starts dwelling here based off of that knowledge. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And there's not nothing that you can conceive in your mind that you can't bring into existence. But it takes focus and faith that you're going to be able to do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So when we open up the door of our ears, the door of our heart, the door of our mind to let Almighty God, Allah, come in, the minister says he will dwell with us. And the door to Allah is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the doorman at the door opening it for you is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. See, they said Peter was at the gate. At the gates of heaven, Peter's standing there. He's opening. Peter's the one that opens the door and lets you in. Well, who is Peter? I don't know about the Peter they talking about from back in the days, but I see one that's fulfilling and has walked through that prototype already and passed that. Is that right? And he's standing at the door, and he's the one that Jesus says in the scripture, on this man have I laid the keys.
That's right.
The keys. Knowledge, faith, love, and the gates of hell shall not prevail.
That's right.
This is my rock.
That's right. Rock. That's right.
This is the one that's giving off the oil that you need to be poured in your womb. From when you and I got hit in the head by the robbers and the thieves. Jubilah, Jubilo, Jubilee. These three ruffians left us sitting in the road. Is that right? Buried us in this north corner. North America, in a shallow grave with a spring of cash is coming up to let you know what's under the ground is really alive, but I got them buried, hiding us from our people, hiding us from Allah. Is that right?
Yes,
Man. So when we think about it from that level, this is heavy. Knowledge, faith, love. Well, what is love? The power of God within must be guided by knowledge, but there is an emotional force, the minister says, that gives direction to the power of God within you and I. And the emotional force, which is the creative force upon which the entire universe is constructed, is love. He said, when you couple the power of God within with knowledge and love, then you have a balanced individual whose willpower is being used in a creative, constructive way, not in the way of destruction. Come on, knowledge coupled with love. Balanced individual. Who doesn't want balance? We struggle for balance. Is that right? Isn't one of the study guides called the struggle for balance? See, when we're struggling for balance, oh my God, that's a whole nother level, because now we're looking at, in that study guide, the minister talks about in the struggle for balance, how, you know, all of these celestial bodies float in their own orbit. The stars are in their own orbit. The moon is in its own orbit. The sun is in its own orbit. They all look like they're together, but they all got their own orbit because they all carry their own atmosphere. And because of the law that Allah has already set in motion, they all got their own boundaries, but all of them are powerful in their own right. And they're just a sign of you and I. You and I are greater than the star, greater than the moon, greater than the sun. The sun can't think for itself. The star can't think for itself. The moon can't think for itself. But Allah created us in His image and likeness. That if we, and gave us
free will and then asks us, would you submit your will back to me? And if we submit our will back to him, then he said, I'll make you into myself. Not just physically, but spiritually and mentally.
That's how it works.
And some say, yeah, all right, so you sounding spooky. No, we're going to prove that because we got a man right in our midst who's a witness bearer he's a witness of the Jesus. It ain't no ifs, ands, buts, and maybes about it, but love, man. When we go into study guide number 18, and the minister is dealing with love in here. We still got a little bit of time. Y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, we might as well do what we got to do. Is that right? You know, keep our word and make it bond. He said, though love is generally defined as an emotion, I would say that love is not an emotion. Love is the mother of emotion. Love is the creative force out of which all things come. Love can be broken down into 4 principles: freedom, justice, equality, and obedience to the will of Allah God. We call our intense feeling of like or dislike love and hate. But love is not just an intense feeling. That is a limitation that this world has placed on it, making it our emotional reaction to something. So now look here. Love can be broken down into 4 principles: freedom, justice, equality, and obedience to the will of Allah God. But love is the creative force out of which all things come. The creative force. God is force and power. So everything that has been created by Allah has been created out of his love.
Exactly.
Everything.
Yes, sir.
Sun, moon, stars, planets, trees, flowers, all of that is out of the love of Allah, out of his creative force. And the minister made an example that I thought was very profound. He said the creative force is separate from the intense feeling that we have toward the created thing. That's heavy. The creative force is separate from the intense feeling that we have toward the created thing. We love our mothers and our fathers. We love our wife. We love our children. We love our husbands. But that creative force of love, the minister is saying, is separate from the intense feeling that we have toward the created thing. Because that created thing can go off the path. You going with him? She can go off the path. You going with her? See? Yeah, that because look, only God, I said Sunday, God comes between a man and his heart according to the Quran in the ways to success. That's close. 2 will be laying in the bed. Allah said, I'll take one and leave the other. Is that right? 2 will be grinding at the mill. I'll take one and leave the other. So we can be in the same work, raising the dead. And love you as a believer. We stone cold buddy believers. And then you flip the script. I can't go with you with that. I can't get mad at the captain. I can't get mad at the minister. When your face start coming down to violation and you out of here, I can't sit up and be raising my hand saying, well, I don't even understand it. The brother did all this work and they loved it. I don't even understand how y'all did that. You know what? I'm done with y'all because I've seen other people. What? Oh, really? All right. See you. You lost your doggone mind. See, no, but you caught up in feelings. Nothing more than feelings. But the creative force is separate from the intense feeling that we have toward the created thing. So then he goes on to say, Allah God created the jackass. Yet he states in the Holy Quran that the most hateful sound to him is the braying of the jackass he created. He created the hog, yet he has an intense dislike for the hog. The devil is made out of the creative force, all right? And he certainly has an intense dislike for the devil. Look at this. So now we're dealing with the creative force of love. the jackass. Allah created it, but he says he hates the brain of an ass. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
But you created it out of your creative force of love. For what purpose? That pig was created out of Allah's creative force of love. For what purpose? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it's created for medicinal purposes for white people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To get rid of their diseases. They not made up of the same thing you made up of. You don't need that pig. They need it. Not to eat, but for medicinal purposes. They not using it in the right way. But the other thing you and I got to understand in that, there's a lot of different medicines that these doctors prescribe that got pig in it.
That's right.
Because they ain't have you in mind. When they're giving you that medicine, they made it for their people.
That's right.
They're giving it to you in their ignorance, some of them know. And then you wonder why the side effects is more. You better check and see if there's some pork in that. Hey, I'm just, saying. And you're like, hey, hold up, you got something else that's just as potent without the pork?
That proper question.
Because the righteous Jew is not taking that medicine.
Right. That's right.
So he can't, the doctor can't tell you he ain't got nothing. No, if a Jew was in here, you would give him something different. Give me what you would give him.
Yes, that's right.
But you got to press him.
Yes, yes.
Because as far as he's concerned, you deaf, dumb, and blind, slave to mental death and power. You part of the 85%. You don't know what you're talking about. Where you get that from? Somebody told you something. You don't even sound like you speaking the right vocabulary. Where you heard that word at? No, the devil will try you with questions. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me just stay on track by the grace of Allah. But when you think about this, the minister talking about love is from the creative force, and how he makes these examples about the hog, a detestable thing, which is used to extract medicine to remedy some of the effects of a disease thing that he has allowed to run wild and loose on the earth. Its presence facilitates a divine purpose. We must not narrow love to an emotional reaction. So, knowledge, faith, love. I think from the message on the 13th for the Holy Day of Atonement, the minister gave a very good demonstration of love. And I want to read that. And y'all remember it, and once you hear it, it's definitely going to come fully into effect in our minds. And it's an example for us. He said, one day Elijah Muhammad beheld me playing the violin, singing, dancing, and acting and whatnot, plays that I had written. And he sent for me. He said, brother, you really have a lot of talent. He said, but your greatest talent is in the spiritual. I didn't know anything about spiritual. Then he asked me, would you give up all of this for me? Without hesitation, I said, yes, sir. Then he said, do you mean to say that you would give up all your music for me? I said, yes, sir, dear apostle. I'm going to, and then Minister Farrakhan says this, I'm going to say this, and I want you to mark time. Jesus can't use you if there's anything in your life that you live or love more than he and his Father. Then he said, don't clap, because I can't ask you to give up a lot of stuff and you say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. He said, I didn't even hesitate. Now, a Muslim is one who submits his or her will to do the will of Allah. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And our goal is entire submission to Allah.
Yes.
How many of us are ready to submit our will, brother, can you get me a napkin? Entirely to Allah. And in our hearts and minds, some of us may say, I'm ready to do it, but we may not be there yet. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
But what I understand is the minister is being used as an example, like his father before him, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as an example. And I know this can be something that I have people right now, like, man, I'm down with the nation. I love all this and that, but I ain't giving up everything. Like, I mean, what does that spell that out? What's the fine print on that? you know, I mean, you say everything? Dang, man. We won't be able to do nothing. Yeah, but Allah is the one that comes between a man and his heart. Oh no, this gets down to the nitty gritty. Is that right, brothers and sisters? Allah cannot use us if we love anything more than we love him. And you, I mean, brothers and sisters, right away you have to start thinking about what you really, really feel that you love.
That's right.
Because whatever it is, I'm telling you as an actual fact,
Yes, sir.
Allah is going to try you. He's going to try us with that. Because he wants us to love him more than anything else. He don't mind you loving, but nothing else should be in between us and him. Now you can hide it. You know, you can be like, I'm not going to say it. I'm not even going to try to. No. I'm a witness. You can be like, all right, you may go through trials about something that you really love. You may have been saying to somebody, I really, I just love this so much. This just helps me out. And then boom, a trial comes, you getting tested on it.
Right.
And you wondering. And then Allah may give you the understanding that I want you to love me more than you love that.
That's right.
And you realize, man, I'm in a personal trial with God. And then you pass it. Then you start saying to yourself, I am not going to say. I'm trying not even think about something I love a lot because I know he's listening and he's going to try me again. But he already knows your thoughts.
That's right.
So now what? Are you thinking it ain't real? Watch. If it ain't happened to you yet, it's coming.
That's right.
Your children, somebody, something. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't love them, but we shouldn't love them more than we love Allah.
That's right.
Love of the brotherhood shouldn't be more than we love Allah.
That's right.
Love of the sisterhood shouldn't be more than we love Allah. So, well, brother, I thought it said, how can you say you love God whom you've never seen and not have love for your brother and sister that you see every day? Exactly. But that kind of love is to show to prove our love for the God that we don't see.
That's right.
The love we show toward one another is a sign of our love for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which is a sign of our love for Master Fard Muhammad. Allah in the person, because Allah put himself in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and left him here for us. And then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad put himself in Minister Farrakhan and left him here for us. Is that right?
That's right.
So that we can see what real love looks like. But the thing is, no matter how much you love your wife, no matter how much you love your children, there is boundaries.
Yes, sir.
Allah sets up a law of boundary for everything in creation.
Yes, sir.
So there are boundaries to the point where you and I cannot find ourselves submitting entirely our will to our husband, our wife, our children. No, that's for Allah. There's boundaries to our submission. But what's the boundaries? Look, our marriages and our life with one another is based off of the principles of Islam and the standard of Islam. You go outside that standard, outside that principle, you done broke the contract. You ain't getting no more bean soup for a few nights. And no farina bread. No bean soup, no farina bread. Oh my God, I'd be like a crackhead somewhere. It's calling me, it's calling. But, y'all all right? I just had a moment. But the point I'm making is that when we go outside of the boundaries, what are the boundaries in our spiritual life? That's our orbit. You go outside the orbit of our principles of Islam, our pillars of faith. Then the love that I have for you the creative force of that love, you just went outside the boundary of now all I got is intense feeling. To hell with you right now. No, when you come back, then I'll come back. And we can still be in the same house. Oh no, that's real. You know how many believers are outside of the mosque that are in bad standing for one reason or another that we grew up with? We love them, but it's just an intense feeling right now. Because the creative force of that love is in this. Because this is Allah's.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna move on because I'm getting caught up right now. But y'all understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So the minister says this. He said, when I gave up all of that, then I could put myself in a position to be fed now. That he could make me into himself. I'm talking science now. You're not looking at a Negro. You are not looking at a cheap man who is trying to pass himself off as some leader, teacher. No, if I don't give up what I love, he, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, could not make me into himself. He said, I want you to line your mind up with my mind so that it could be one mind. Did you hear what I said? One mind. That's our destiny. That's our destiny.
Yes, sir.
To become one with Allah.
Yes, sir.
What is the pathway to become one with Allah? The door is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The minister standing at the door. So if he's our example and we strive to be like, follow that example, then we can be like the minister in association with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he'll start writing on our soul. I'm almost finished now.
Yes, sir.
Paul in the scripture says he could not leave them until Christ was formed in them.
That's right.
Who is Christ? That's God in person.
Yes, sir. Come on.
That's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the exalted Christ.
Yes, sir.
What makes him Christ? What exalted him? Allah in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. That man, Elijah Muhammad, submitted for 44 years. And 40 of those years in the absence of his physical presence of his teacher.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, look, from our history that we're taught,
Yes, sir.
Master Fard Muhammad taught that man night and day for 3 years and 4 months. That's 40 months, brothers and sisters. And then left him by himself on a mission. And knew the exact time when the mission would stop that phase of it and he would take him to himself. Because the 40 months represented 40 years that, Elijah, I'm going to leave you here doing this work. And it's not by coincidence that Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, first term examination of Mr. Elijah Muhammad, has 40 questions and answers.
Yes, sir.
Master Fard Muhammad is mathematically right and exact. So here he trains a student up and gives him an expiration of time to do the first part of his mission. And in that first part of his mission, by the work that he would do, no matter what was happening, no matter hypocrites is chasing you to try to kill you, you can't go see your family, you got to sneak back and forth, you on the run for 7 years, then after that, then I'm gonna let the devil lock you up in his prison. Now you my servant. I chose you to be the leader over the nation of Islam, and I let the hypocrite come after you. I had you running for 7 years, and through your running, studying 104 books. Throughout the time, everywhere you go, and you still staying focused on me, not staying there no more than 2 weeks, and raising up the dead everywhere you went. Another mosque was coming up before you left in 2 weeks. Then when you wear the hypocrite out, I got the FBI waiting for you. Now you know what that average black man would be like. You know, I'm done. Hell with this. God, I thought you was with me. After all that, my family suffering, my wife with my children, got to deal with all this. She got to sneak to come see me. My children probably thinking all kind of crazy stuff about me because I'm in love with this man who I'm telling them is God, and they don't know he gone, daddy gone. 7 years straight. Then on top of that, now I'm locked up for 5 years for something I didn't do.
Think about it. Wow.
That's 12 years. That's the ruler, baby.
That's right.
And he passed that test.
Love what?
And still had another, 28 more years to go to do a work that he thought he can get done in 3 weeks to 6 months. He said, if Allah would have told me it was going to take me 40 years, I wouldn't have accepted the mission. Now look at us.
Long journey.
It's been over 89 years now since Master Father Muhammad came.
That's right.
We've been talking hereafter, freedom, justice, and equality, 89 years. Somebody could be sitting there, man, look. I was watching the tape from 40 years ago. The minister said the same thing I heard him say just the other day. I said, man, you know what? I don't know if this really going to happen.
That's right here every day.
Our patience got to be like the patience of Allah. And what would give us that kind of patience? Faith, love, knowledge. Is that right? But the submission part of that man, Minister Farrakhan, because we didn't get a chance to be with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but we see him in Minister Farrakhan because that one mind, those two became one. Now look at how the Quran puts it. In Surah 3, here's Allah talking to Mary through an angel. Is that right? Sure. And telling her through this angel, he said, we sent to our spirit in the form of a well-made man. I love that. Sent to our spirit in the form of a well-made man. The Quran can get your rap game on. You be like, yo, I'm serious. You be like, man, I'm going to use that line. I use that line on my wife. Anyway, I'm going to move on. But, yeah, ain't no mystery God, Every married sister got that spirit in the form of a well-made man. If she don't, we better check that. Is that right, Brother Joseph? She better say I love. Yes, he did. Come on, see? He just, see, look. Boy, if y'all had him on camera, you just seen another side of my brother, All praises due to Allah. But Allah says here that, let me just get right to the point of it. Here's Mary being told she's going to have a child. And Allah, through the angel, is saying, "O Mary, surely Allah gives thee good news with a word from him, of one whose name is the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, worthy of regard in this world and the hereafter, and of those who are drawn nigh to Allah. And he," meaning Allah, and he, meaning that child Jesus, will speak to the people when in the cradle and when of old age, and he will be one of the good ones. These lessons of supreme wisdom was answered by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in February of 1934. He was a baby, speaking to the people in the cradle. All of the Muslim followers had to follow his answers. That's when he was in the cradle. Is that right? She said, "My Lord, how can I have a son and man has not yet touched me?" He said, "Even so, Allah creates what he pleases. When he decrees a matter, he only says to it, be, and it is." Now we got to look at it in past, present, future, perfect tense. Because yes, there was a Mary 2,000 years ago. And there was a Joseph and there was a Jesus. But they were a sign of what God would bring into existence at the end of the devil's rule. And it would come spiritually. It wouldn't be no particular woman, individual woman that would give birth to this Jesus. It would be the black woman who went through the suffering of 310 years of chattel slavery that would give birth to this Jesus. Right. Through the pain of suffering, this one would come into existence. You see? And so it says, and he will teach him the book and the wisdom and the Torah and the gospel, and make him a messenger to the children of Israel, saying, I have come to you with a sign from your Lord, that I determined for you out of dust the form of a bird, then I breathe into it, and it becomes a bird with Allah's permission, and I heal the blind and the leprous, and bring the dead to life with Allah's permission, and I inform you of what you should eat and what you should store in your houses. Surely there is a sign in this for you if you are believers. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad did all that.
Yes, sir.
But the bird he formed out of dust. He formed Malcolm. He formed Muhammad Ali. He formed Warif Muhammad. But the bird that he formed out of dust and breathed into him and he flew with Allah's permission is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Then there's a transformation and transference of power and energy that takes place in that. Because that bird submitted his will entirely to that man, Elijah Muhammad, and his teaching. He showed us over the past 42 years, he's been totally in submission to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been feeding him.
Yes, sir.
The book. The book, man. The book that's the guidance for the next 10,000 years. That man's being fed that book. I believe some of these study guides is coming from that book, but also the wisdom. Don't nobody preach like Farrakhan. Nobody. Any subject matter, Bible or Quran, science, biology, whatever, the wisdom. The Torah.
That's right.
That man can run through the Old Testament like crazy, backwards and forwards.
That's right.
The gospel of Jesus. And now he's forming birds.
That's right.
Student ministers and others out of dust by Allah's permission, but what Allah? Man, Honorable Elijah Muhammad is God, man.
That's right. That's right. That's right. No doubt.
And his God power is by the permission of Master Fard Muhammad. Master Fard Muhammad's in control of the universe. Elijah Muhammad's in control of the earth.
That's right.
And he told them, Farrakhan, I will give you America.
That's right. They did so.
The minister said that Honorable Elijah Muhammad told him one day, he said, brother, Master Fard Muhammad told me that if I am obedient to him, he will give me power over the whole earth. And I'm telling you, Farrakhan, if you're obedient to me, I will give you America. He told him that in the 70s. Now look at where we at. Right. See, now where's your faith in that?
Right.
What's your knowledge on that and your faith and the love to know that, look, I don't give a damn how dark it gets. We got to hold on to what we got because the victory is already set for us. Because on this man has Allah laid the keys. Faith, knowledge, faith, and love. So closing this, the minister said, at a certain point, Jesus became one with the Father. He couldn't say, I'm one, until it had happened. In the 60s, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to me, God has made me to take his place among the people, and I am making you to take mine. I didn't know what he was talking about. I don't know, but I'm being made. Now you're looking at a made man. You're looking at a man made by God. That's why I don't have an equal unless you are willing to be made by God.
Well,
See? Our obedience to Allah through the minister will allow us to be made by God. Let us make man in our image and after our likeness. How do you see that? Who's the us? See, at first the us was Master Fard Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad making a man in our midst, Farrakhan. Wherever you see him, look at him.
that's right.
Wherever he tells you to go, go. Wherever he tells you to stay from. Because he's like, I want you to see I'm making a man right in your midst from myself and Allah. Here's a man, the first of them that slept.
That's right.
The Jesus in your midst.
That's right.
Elijah, I'm the first begotten of the dead. Now here's the first of them that slept, of those that I taught. He woke up and he's strengthening his brethren, and I'm making them right in the midst of you. The devil, Satan can't even bother him.
That's right.
He won't even get a gray hair or a wrinkle over what Satan will put on him.
His hidden face.
And if you look at him and you follow him, I'll make you just like him.
That's right.
And who don't want that?
Right. That's right.
Now, what is it that got to be given up to get that? Jesus said, if any man will be my disciple, he must first deny himself. I got to give up the violin. I got to give up the rap game. I got to give up this. I got to give up that. It's not like I can't do it, but I got to put it down to pick this up. And when Allah sees fit, maybe I can go back to that. But nothing can be in the way between me and Allah. Deny yourself, pick up your cross and walk. Pick up your cross and follow me. And the cross is all the baggage we got, that we have to shed off in obedience to Allah while we're working. I always say, when you come in the mosque, you got to be doctor and patient at the same time.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
We know we messed up.
That's right.
Yes, sir. Right.
Allah's taking us up out of hell. We messed up.
That's right.
But as long as we keep our eye on him and the man that's in front of us as a guide, then we'll be all right.
Yes, sir. Right.
Say, well, brother, y'all keep saying the minister's going to leave. What happens when he leaves? Who we going to keep our eye on? He done put Christ in us. You don't know the teachings? You don't know what to do about how to eat, how to heal yourself. You don't know what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said about being out late at night, what he said about this. You don't know restrictive laws. You don't know that and know the example. It's all up in you.
That's right.
But as long as the minister's around, we're going to always be waiting to see what he's going to do first before we make a move. No, he got to go. It's like when you get out your mother's house and get your first apartment. Hey, no, that's you, but you got to grow up.
That's right.
We got to grow up.
Yes, sir. Right.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
It's all up in us. But is the knowledge fed by the faith? Because the strength of our knowledge is based off of our faith. And at the root of all that is love, the creative force of Allah God. He came to save us from our sins that we inherited from the white man. So we got it. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the one that he left to be in control over it. That's why Muhammad is taking care of other things.
Sir. Wow.
And somebody get upset and be like, man, Master Muhammad, Allah, he's going to get rid of this devil. The white man, Yaqub's grafted devil, is really, it would be beneath Allah.
Right.
Master Father Muhammad to show himself and be like wielding power. No, I'm going to show my power
Right.
by
Making.
making one that was a slave.
That's right.
Yes.
And using a slave to beat the hell out of the white man.
Oh, man.
See, that's what you read about when you read about in the book where one of the prophets beat the hell out of the enemy with the jawbone of an ass.
Samson. That's right.
Samson.
That's right.
That's what we represent, the jawbone of an ass. Is that right? And they just are not going to understand, well, how did these ignorant people who was made into 3/5
Right.
beating the hell out of
Right.
the powerful, great Satan, the jawbone of Farrakhan,
Right.
All right.
really whipping the hell out of him, and we're yeah, bro. And so all we have to do is just hold fast to the man that got the keys, man,
Yes, sir.
and increase our knowledge, but most of all, increase our faith and hold fast to the love of our God. I thank you, brothers and sisters, for giving me your time and your patience as I greet you all in peace. Assalamu alaikum. All praises are due to Allah. All praises are due to Allah. Thank you, brother. All praises due to Allah. Well, yeah, yeah, brothers, and Wednesdays, you know how it is throughout the week, we be worn out.
Right.
Seriously. But, we got to do what we have to do. And then when we stand in the name of Allah, that energy starts coming back. Later on, I'm be ready to go lay down. But at the same time, it's like, regardless of what it was going to look like in here, I knew I had to keep my word bond, and I already knew that I had something to finish, where this message was concerned. So if it would have just been one brother or two brother or a brother and sister, I was just going to teach like we got a room full because I got to get this stuff up out of me by Allah's grace. All praises due to Allah. And, that is also part of the way I was trained, and it's part of our growth and development because it keeps us humble. So that we don't be looking at, I'm not going to go over there. Who's in there? Oh, nah, man. That ain't worthy of me going. No, because we're faithful over little. Allah going to bless us with much, man. You know what I mean? And it really warms my heart and soul to be able to give off what I'm getting out of the studies, hoping that it will spark something in another brother or another sister that you can add on to it and grow with it. So, brothers and sisters, let's close out. We want to take up some charity. Brother, we can get the pass in the receptacle, and I'll give some announcements. Now, Friday, we're having our study group, and those of you that can make it out, let's all get up in here for the study group. We're still dealing with study guide number 13, the price of redemption. When all the study guides are very meaningful, brothers and sisters. And if you have your study material, still go home and read 1st and 2nd Kings, and also read the material on what was the other one? Is it the book? You said Corinthians?
Yes.
No, it's hold on. I'm gonna just pull it right here. Our reading material for this study guide, and even though we may not get to talk First Chronicles, First and Second Chronicles, First and Second Kings, and Surah 12, which is Joseph. Do that reading. Do that reading, brothers and sisters, and then we'll get more into the study guide, but the reading is very important. And even if you don't understand everything you're reading, that's all right. You're drinking it in. But Friday night, we'll start going back into the study guide. And then Sunday, we have our webcast. Let's try to get the people out for the webcast.
Yes,
we're getting ready soon to have our Savior's Day gift drive.
Yes, sir.
The first drive is coming up on November 16th. So anything that you give between now and November 16th toward the Savior's Day gift, not number 2 poor charity. You still got to deal with your number 2 poor. Not local charity. Still got to give your local. Still got to deal with your obligatory charity, MUI, and all those other things that's on there that we give to. But the Savior's Day gift, our goal for each believer is $1,000. Now, if you don't think you're going to make the goal, then that's defeating the part of it right there. But this, on November 16th, we're asking each believer to give a minimum of $300. And you and I got from now, which is today's the 30th, right? 30th. We got from now until the 16th to either chinch at it, give a little bit here, a little bit there, or get it all together and give it at one time. But it don't have to all come out your pocket, brothers and sisters. You know people. You know people. Just go to your people. Those that know you and know you love the nation, know you love Minister Farrakhan, and they love Minister Farrakhan because of you. Say, listen, man, we raising money to give a gift to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I got a goal that I'm trying to reach. My goal is $1,000. I'm trying to reach $1,000 between now and February. What can you help me with? How much you need? $1,000. I mean, he said, I don't have 1,000. Well, what you got? I can give you 200. All right. That'll help. That's right. You got it right now. You'll be surprised what people will tell you that they can give. You see? And then when they give it, say someone gives you 1,000. Hell, now you know you can still raise your own 1,000 from your pocket. Now you're going to have 2,000 on the Savior's Day gift. The 1,000 is a minimum. Is that right? But on the 16th, we're going after 300 as a minimum. You see? Because we're behind the 8 ball with our Savior's Day gift. Our goal as a mosque that was set for us by Chicago, where the Savior's Day gift is concerned, is what? 136,000. Now, one individual might be like, man, that's a lot. I ain't got no 136. It's not based off of one individual. We have over 136 believers in the mosque. If everybody gives a little, no one has to give a lot. Is that right? We can do that, brothers and sisters.
Yes, sir.
But we just got to be putting our faith
sir.
forward where that is concerned. So it's not something to concentrate on in the sense of looking at it as a burden. The more we help the man of God, the more God will help us. So November 16th, we're going to have a drive, and we do these drives by teleconference. But I'm saying we have between now and then to start paying on that. When you pay your charity, put something on your Savior's Day gift, all right?
Sir.
And then we'll have about 2 more drives after that before we go to Detroit for Savior's Day.
Right.
And then we'll have another drive when we come back. And then all in between, we in the season of Savior's Day. So we raising up money. Now the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan will be in Washington, D.C. this weekend.
Yes, sir.
From the 2nd through the 4th.
Yes, sir.
So, Jesus on the main line, brothers and sisters. And there'll be particular brothers being selected to go down there along with other brothers from around the surrounding states, that's in that region. And we're going to go be with our man to make sure that he's safe and secure as he moves about. And then when he leaves, we leave.
Yes, sir.
But we'll go in shifts by Allah's grace. But keep the thought of our brother, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, in our thought and in our hearts, and the team that's rolling with them for their safety. Just as Allah, keeps us safe, he keeps the minister safe, but the prayer of the righteous availeth much. Is that right? Let's make sure we get our latest edition of the Final Call. FOI, we already know from our orders that we put in, we got to pick up our papers. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it's important. I was talking to Brother Henry earlier. There's a series on, and it's called Who Killed Malcolm X?
Oh, yes, sir.
And brother, since I spoke with you, I watched another
Segment.
and it's definitely an attack on the nation. It's on Fusion is the channel that's coming on, and it's a 5-part series.
Okay.
You got
Yes.
You got black people hitting it up.
Yes. I saw a little bit of it when brother brought it to my attention, so I know. Yeah, we need to check that out and do the
The reason why I
knowledge on
say
it.
that is because our people will be viewing it,
Right.
and we need to be able to speak wisdom into conversations that we have when that comes up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You got Brother Wesley Muhammad on the case too.
Okay, praise be to Allah. But one thing that we're definitely going to be mindful of, we ain't going to be giving them free advertisement. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we'll deal with it, but I'm not giving the enemy free advertising where I'm going to be bringing it to everybody's attention that this thing is on, because then they're going to all be watching it, and some people that may not even have thought about watching will be watching it. But we'll definitely do the knowledge on it and be able to speak into some of that from the rostrum, just in case, and for those who may have been watching it, because those kind of things we got to stay on top of. You know what I mean? Because the enemy, Satan is always planning. And don't think it's like a big scheme of satanic forces. I just talked about the 10%. It's a few. But as the minister, as Brother Hafiz shared with us, that the minister said, what Satan is doing right now, he's juggling balls, throwing them in the air as an illusion to distract everybody else. And that's what's happening right now. This whole thing with the impeachment, the situation with Syria, the situation with Iran, we cannot take our eyes off of that, because Allah is moving where that is concerned. And what I see in the midst of it, it can end up being the impeachment process can be a lull before the storm, which will give us time to still do the work we need to do in raising the dead and building the nation, because the storm is definitely coming. But that whole impeachment thing can be a distraction that causes a lull. They definitely gonna move on Iran. And when they move on Iran, the minister ain't sitting back with his mouth shut. He's gonna speak out against that. If the minister speaks out against it, then the nation is speaking out against it. And then the devil gonna make a move against us. Hell, you can barely somebody you can't even, you gotta be politically correct with so many things today, that there was a comedian from Saturday Night Live made a mention about Bruce Jenner, in a joke, and now they trying to come against him, and he ain't even really saying anything out of the way. That wasn't true. But I'm only saying that to say it's about being censorship. So when things start coming down against these Muslim countries and the minister speaks out against it, and we start voicing things to our people to avoid them from getting caught up in that war, the enemy's going to eventually say something against us. and want to do something to us where that is concerned. So we can continue this afterwards, but let's close out. Let me close out in prayer.
From Sunday.
The lecture from Sunday that just passed. Okay, we gotta make sure. Yes, Sunday's message is here. All right, the 3 keys. So you can get that today after the mosque meeting, after we close out in prayer, and inshallah we'll have more coming to you. All right, by the grace of Allah. But let us close out in prayer, please. Let's rise for the closing prayer in the manner in which we are taught. Hands outstretched, head slightly bowed, or you may pray in whichever manner is comfortable to you. Please follow me silently. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of the day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve, Thee alone do we beseech for help. O Allah, guide us along the right path, the path of those upon whom Thou hast bestowed favors, and not the path of those upon whom Thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray after hearing Thy teaching. Say, He, Allah, is one. Allah is He upon whom we all depend. He begets not, nor is He begotten, and I say there is none like unto Him. Ameen. Allahu Akbar.